using artificial intelligence and perseverance to combat human trafficking. I'm Tonya Hall, and joining me is Brandon Wirtz, founder and CEO of Recognant. Welcome, Brandon.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So, what does Recognant do, and what prompted you to start the company?
So we're an artificial intelligence company, and I got started in the AI space almost 25 years ago. My first AI company was in high school, and I'm 40. So, but I've been using the same technology for that entire time, and it's just developed and gotten better as it were. And so really it wasn't that I wanted to start the company as much as the company's kind of just always existed, and I've just been finding new uses for it and applying that to business models. You know, sometimes it's games, sometimes it's cars, sometimes it's language stuff, sometimes it's politics, and sometimes it's computer vision. And so it's just kind of always existed. I've never known how to not be doing it.
Tell us about Lowkey and the role it plays within your company.
So Lowkey is the name of the AI that I have, and it kind of picked its own name. We joke a little bit about this, but so it was just called Local Bot. You know, it was just so LO for local bot. And then there was a version that ran in the cloud that didn't have as many capabilities, that was called the lobotomized bot because it didn't have all of the capabilities. And so it became Lobby. And then one day when we were doing some stuff, the system looks for facts that it can't figure out whether or not they're real, or that don't quite make sense, but are cited as though they're very real. And it came across Lowkey, the god of mischief, and had generated a huge amount of code about this, Lowkey and what the rules were and whether or not it was real, because, cited as a, myth, as fact, as opposed to as fiction. And it's like, no, this can't exist. This breaks all of my rules. And that kind of solidified it as that was going to be the name of the AI.
So a personal mission of yours is to end human trafficking, and you've been very successful doing that. You say it's not about the technology that makes you successful, but it's something more. So take a moment to explain how Lowkey helps you accomplish your mission at scale.
So there's a lot of things that would be very easy for a human to do if they could see everything at once, which we generally can't do. When you go on, well, not you, when someone goes online, lots of times they use a handle, and that handle is fairly unique, or a derivation of something that's unique to them. And they post an ad about a garage sale or an ad about something else. That gets forgotten about for 5+ years. But there's an association with, that address that they used or the phone number that they used. And so then when they do something nefarious under that same handle 7 years later in a different forum, most people would never have noticed or even know how to look for it. We have a complete copy of the English internet, all the text, not pictures and things like that, multiple petabytes of data. And Lowkey can go through and say, I found this thing and it looks suspicious. An ad for 2002 Prius that didn't exist. Extra large headlights, great for recreation, great for domestic, and then weird other features. And that isn't an ad for a car, it's an ad for a person. They're signaling that this is a person who has large breasts and was born in 2002 and is for sale for some amount of money. And that ad gets flagged in our system as you couldn't be selling that thing. That car doesn't exist, and therefore this must be something else. And then the system can go through and say, well, what other things has this person run an ad for? And sometimes that is a sketchy massage therapy business. Sometimes that is, other cars that didn't exist. It can be just about anything. And Lowkey can pull all of that stuff together and say, here's this nice packaged set of things that says, not only is this sketchy, but this person has done other sketchy things and we can track them down. Now, we then pass that off to law enforcement and they make the decision about whether they're going to do anything with that information. But, nothing that the system does a person couldn't do. It's just that it'd take a person a very long time to track down all of those things. You could look for the particular handle that posted the ad in search and you'd find, thousands of posts across forums and things like that. And you could go and read all of them, but you'd have to go through and read all of them. And for the most part, people don't do those kinds of things.
These types of clues, maybe hidden in ads and that sort of thing. This software also works for farm labor and other black market activities, right?
Yeah. So a lot of the times you see things that are just, the original purpose of the software is to track down fake apartment ads, things where people were running a scam where they basically want to either collect your credit information or the fee for running your application. And we look for things where the apartment was just too good of a deal or had come up too often and those kind of things. The farm labor stuff works a lot the same way. Of you see something where somebody advertises that they can pick your 4 acres of strawberries for a fourth the price that they ought to be able to. Or you see ads that say that they offer anything from roofing services to whatever at rates that are just too low to be real, especially for that particular area. And then we can also tie those to, again, the same kind of things with phone numbers where we see ads in Mexico that are for short-term loans. And what's happening is they're basically creating indentured servants where you say, oh, we loan this person $1,000 and they can never work it off. And so they say, oh, come over here, work off your loan on our, strawberry picking, roofing, whatever, and you can pay it off. And it's set up so that you never would. They charge you rent, they charge you food, they charge you all these other things. And so maybe you're paying off your loan at a rate of $2 a month forever. And that's not real because you're not going to live long enough to pay off your $1,000.
You also offer an API to classified and dating sites to help moderate suspicious ads before they appear on sites. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, so we worked very hard to get Sesta Fosta passed. And Sesta Fosta is a law that says that if you're in the classified ads business and you are running ads that result in human trafficking or certain other illegal activities, that you can be liable, especially if you had reason to know. And this was part of what took down Backpage.com. So lots of sites end up running ads, and dating ads can say things that aren't exactly legal. I'm looking for somebody to pay my rent and date. Those kinds of things. And different sites have different rules, and some of them are willing to allow you to have sugar daddy type relationships, and some of them aren't. We provide an API that allows you to say, no, you're not going to allow sugar daddy stuff, or you're going to, we don't make the content call. We flag the stuff and say, this is what's going on in it. So if somebody says, hey, we're okay with sugar daddies, but we're not okay with drugs, they can flag those ads. Or, we're okay with relationships that say mentoring, but don't actually mention cash, those kinds of things. So they can set to their particular content policy. I'd love to be able to say that, we were just going to plain block everybody who's going to do any kind of sex for money things or anything that was illegal, but we provide the tools so that they can at least be better than they were. It's not my job to say we're going to fix the world, and if I set those rules, nobody would use the APIs and we wouldn't move the world forward. So it's a balance of trying to figure out, we can flag these things and then they can let their moderators decide what content they will and won't allow.
Some organizations use chatbots to help disrupt trafficking demand. How does that process work?
So the idea is supposed to be that if you're wasting people's time by having them chat with bots, that they won't be going after actual people, or that by baiting people into the conversations, that you'll be able to identify people and flag them, so that if they do something later, you can say, "Hey, we know that they've done those things." I'm kind of anti this. The main thing is that when you're using a chatbot to interact with somebody, if your chatbot's pretending to be a 14-year-old girl, you're creating demand. You are filling somebody's need to chat with a 14-year-old girl. And I hate to say that the person who engages in that wouldn't have engaged in that, because it's not exactly entrapment, because they probably would have engaged in it had they had the opportunity. But I feel like people escalate. The first time that they do something, they don't do it all of the way. You work up to, I'm going to go buy a 14-year-old. It's not the first time you interact with a 14-year-old online that you're like, I really ought to go buy a 14-year-old to have sex with. You have steps along the way. And the chatbot could be the first step to putting somebody on, or move that process up 3 to 6 months. And so they might eventually get there, but they might get caught before they got there if they hadn't had that first interaction. And the success rates are not high enough that we're like, oh, we're having 10,000 arrests a year because of these chatbots. They're having like 20 or 30. And to me, the gains aren't worth the negatives.
So, Brandon, what kind of success are we seeing? I mean, and what do we need to do to continue to move this forward? Is law enforcement utilizing the tools that you offer, or government officials? Are they aware that these are things that they can use? Are they utilizing them?
Things are getting a lot better. So 3 years ago, total arrests of all things related to human trafficking in the U.S. were under 1,000 arrests. This year, it will be over 5,000. So that's a huge increase. And that's not because trafficking got worse over that 3-year period. It's because law enforcement's doing something about it. There has been a lot of what I do that is convincing people in small towns that this really happens. I have conversations all the time. People are like, no, that doesn't happen in our community. Or, even to the point that people are like, oh, no, that only happens to pick a race. We don't have any of those people in our town. And so there's a lot of it that's been education and getting people using those, just being willing to prosecute or look into things. And taking down Backpage made a big difference in that. People started to realize that this was so prevalent that there were actual just classified ads for it. And getting people over that first hump has gone a long way, in being able to have me show somebody that, their local newspaper has some of those same ads. People are like, oh, no, how would they even find those things? I'm like, look, here it is, next to the garage sale. Here's a trafficking ad. And it's like, not even hardly disguised. It's like, would you like to find love with a younger woman? And like how young? Like, oh, like you go through. We worked to break up a child bride service that was operating basically out of a church. And they were taking out quarter-page ads in the local newspaper on a regular basis that talked about the advantages of joining their church, because they were going to help you pair with, young, innocent, virginal, all of these words that clearly meant child bride. And none of law enforcement, nobody in the community had particularly even noticed. You gloss over it. It's, oh, it's an ad for a church. Yeah, I'm not going to look at it. Why would I think that was suspicious? And if it doesn't interest me, I'm blind to it. And so, that went on for years. And nobody noticed because they just didn't notice.
Brandon, thank you so much for the work that you're doing. I know that we have a lot further to go. If somebody wants to find out more about the work that you're doing and maybe they want to connect with you personally, how can they do that?
The easiest way is to go out to the recognant.com website. I have set up a not-for-profit that is in disarray because I've got so many other things going on that setting up the website for the not-for-profit hasn't been a priority. But if you want to help, reach out to recognant.com. There's a contact page and it's very easy to get a hold of me.
Thanks again, Brandon Wirtz, founder and CEO of Recognant. And if you guys want to find more of my interviews, you can do that right here or go to tonyahall.net. Thanks for watching.